And welcome back to the Credit Authority. Once again, we are speaking about everything real estate. And you cannot talk about real estate on Long Island without talking about this guy, Charlie Weinraub, the handsome homebuyer. And what I really want to pick your brain on this segment is something I've been watching on social media, following you more specifically on social media. You have been involved in 3D printing.
Yeah.
And I am just not one of those people that gets a lot of concepts. I don't mean it like that. I'm a visual.
Yeah,
so
of course.
I'm
Me
trying
too.
to visually understand how 3D printing works, and I'm hoping you could explain away.
It's the sickest thing ever. And even people that know 3D printing, unless you actually come and watch this machine work, you just don't get it because it's so out there. So a buddy of mine, Enzo, out of Patchogue, owns a company called SQ4D, in which I'm very blessed to be a board member of, and he invented the 3D printer to print houses. Now, essentially what this thing is, you've seen the 3D printer before, like the little ones that print like, I don't know, phone cases or whatever. You go to sleep, you wake up, you have a phone case. It's that on steroids that we roll onto a piece of property, and it prints your house, or at this point, like 40% of your house.
So which 40%?
So essentially what happens is...
I'm actually getting a little nervous right now. So
Why?
Just conceptually.
You don't get nervous.
No, so it's like I'm just processing how this works.
You're gonna get a chance to see it because I'm starting my build next week, and we're going to be live streaming every aspect of it.
I love it.
Every single day for 30 minutes so that the general public starts to now understand how this comes together because the concept is crazy. So basically right now there's no basement, it's all slab on grade construction. We're doing a lot of ranches, so it's single story. The second generation, the third generation, which I'll talk about in a minute, which will do other things. But we will trench out for the footings.
Okay.
And essentially what happens is lay the underground plumbing in, and now here's the machine. The machine's there. The machine pours a 10,000 PSI like slurry mixture, which is kind of like a watered down concrete as a base in the pit. Then you know how when you do a foundation, you have to put forms in and then fill the forms, right?
Of course.
So the 3D printer then prints using 7,500 PSI concrete. It prints the forms. Then they put rebar in, and then then the printer backfills in the forms to create your footings. Creates your footings. Then once you're at a certain level, it goes back to that slurry mixture and does the slab foundation. Like he just did a slab foundation, took a day. He poured an entire slab foundation with the machine in a day. And the machine does everything. It works off of AutoCAD or CAD like any other architect and G-code. And essentially you set it up, you press a button, and it goes by itself.
How does this affect the cost of the project?
40% less.
How about the manpower?
You don't need any.
You don't, right? Like I'm not missing anything here?
No, so right now it takes 2 people to 3D print a house. And this is the first generation. So the way the whole setup works is there's a volumetric mixer, which is like kind of like a miniature cement mixer of sorts. So it has Portland, it has sand, and it has water. And it mixes it together, and then there's a conveyor belt where it comes and it drops it into a pump. The pump has a hose with a screen, and it pumps it into the machine. Now you have one person that's running the machine, although the machine runs on its own, just to make sure everything's good. And then you have one person that's operating the volumetric mixer to make sure it's feeding cement like at the appropriate pace. That will soon become automated. So the goal is for the second generation machine, which will be out Q1 of next year, is you can fold it up, put it in the back of like a small U-Haul trailer that you would pull, and one person could just open up the machine and build a house. Sick.
So does this replace your structure?
So what happens is now you get to the slab.
Yeah.
Then it 3D prints the walls, interior and exterior walls. Once that happens, the machine folds up and goes. We have a roof truss system that comes in. We pop on electric, plumbing, because what happens is the walls are typically 8 inches apart, and then there's like a zigzag that goes in between. So in those voids, which are 5 inches, we run the plumbing, we run the electric, and we do spray foam insulation.
Okay.
You can make those walls as thick or as narrow as you like, depending on like what R rating of insulation you want to achieve.
Of course.
The future, so the second generation, so then the machine goes and then my guys come in, they do everything else. So we can build a whole house in, let's say, 3 months versus 5 to 6 months, and the cost is 40%. Because A, concrete is inexpensive,
yeah,
comparatively speaking, and B, there's the labor, the insurance, the time savings. You don't have all of that.
How did they know, or how did Enzo know this was going to work and that it wasn't going to fall apart?
Well, so he's a builder. He was in mortgages. He does a lot of stuff. Very smart guy. And he goes into Patchogue building department. He's having a problem. They're like fighting with him about a house. And he's like, you know what? I'm going to build a robot. The robot's going to build a house, and you can argue with the robot. And then he goes home and he's like, I need to build a robot. Like, sick. He's like, how do I build a robot that holds a 2x4 and does this and that? And then all of a sudden he got into 3D printing, and he's been self-funding and developing this over the last 4.5 years, just totally on his own. He owns 100% of the company, and now it's go time. Like it's really happening right now. Like, this guy is going to change the world.
So we know we're going to follow your progress. Tell me about some of the projects that you have lined up for the 3D printing.
So he spec built. Well, he pre-sold a property in Riverhead, which was the first legally 3D printed house in the country. I am going to be the first developer to use his technology to build a house in Islandia. The mayor of Islandia is an awesome guy, gracious enough to allow us to do that. So we're going to start that next week, and we're going to be live streaming it for 30 minutes a day, 5 days a week, so people can actually see how the build works. I'll be commentating that. We're going to put together a series called 3D Print Wars, explaining why we're the best 3D print company. And then we're working on a 25-lot subdivision in Riverhead that'll all be 3D printed, which will be the biggest 3D printed subdivision in the world.
How do you think the traditional contractor slash builder is going to respond to this new technology?
The same way the farmers did, or the people that were working on the farms when those, the first automated farming machines came in. Like, I was talking at a school the other day, talking to kids about just business and whatnot, and entrepreneurial place. Like, isn't this going to put people out of business? I was like, it's not. This is the automation of farming.
Yeah.
It's like money. Jobs are never lost. Money is never lost. They're just transferred.
Sure.
It's evolution. So whereas you have all these other tech opportunities and Uber and this and that, whatever it is that comes out now, AR, VR that's coming, it's the same thing. People will just move into that. Plus, forget about that. You can't get people to do work on your house anyway, so these people can't complain. Nobody wants to go out. Listen, if you talk to a kid, like I asked that kid, I'm like, you want to go out and swing a hammer and frame houses? He's like, no. Like, what do you want to do? You want to be? He's like, I want to be a YouTuber. I was like, so you're complaining to me that we're going to put people out of work, but I can't find anybody to work because you don't want to work. And he laughed.
And when you look at it from that perspective, it does make sense, because a lot of the kids these days, it's a different mentality, I think, than from when you and I grew up. They want the fame. They don't want to do the work that elevates them to the fame.
I don't know. Oh, is that really the case? Is it evolution, or are we just getting old? Maybe all of it.
It could be all of the above.
The coolest thing that's happening with the 3D printer now also is he basically has a printer that they're very close to being good to go with, that's going to 3D print the doors, the moldings, the kitchen cabinets, the countertops out of recycled plastic bottles. So there'll be like a 2-part printer. There'll be a printer that comes in and prints like the house, and then this part, then it'll start printing the moldings, the doors, and all that stuff out of 100% recycled plastic bottles.
That's insane.
Sick.
Is this something that he is going to look to monopolize on the market, or maybe franchise in the marketplace? Do you know what the next step is for the company?
We sit down and talk about this all the time, and he's like, what do you think? Is it this? Is it that? I'm like, listen, you're going to come to the market, and the market is going to give you a direction. But right now, we're basically proving out multiple streams of income, which is he can manufacture and sell machines, which he's about to do. He can spec build, which is what he just proved. He can be a contractor for hire, which is what we're doing in Islandia. And he can do joint venture scenarios, which is what we're going to do in Riverhead. So, I mean, there's a ton of different verticals. It's just a matter of, where the demand is.
I love it. Well, for more information about how you can get your 3D printing, reach out to our guest today, Charlie Weinraub. Please stay tuned. We do need to hit another commercial break, but if you have any questions about the real estate market, looking to invest, fix, flip, JV on a project, this is the man for you to reach out to. Stay tuned for our next guest.